Hey everyone, welcome. This is Chris Tyler. I am Commonfield's Communications and Operations Manager, and I like they and them pronouns. I am really excited to welcome you all today to Dreaming Crip Futurity with Megan Bent, Aurora Berger, and Jillian Crochet. I am also excited to let you know that ASL interpretation will be provided today by Lisa and Candace throughout the program. They will be spotlit throughout, and they have ASL interpreter in their display name. We also have Amanda live captioning. If you would like to see captions during today's session, you can click CC at the bottom of the screen. Later at the end of the session, we will have a Q&A with all session participants, and we just ask that you please place your questions into the chat. If there is any kind of difficulty doing so, we welcome you to share them verbally and we can transcribe them and place them in the chat as well. And if you experience any other technical difficulties or just need some technical assistance during today's session, Emily is our Zoom pilot and they are available via the chat, via direct message if you would like to connect with them. We welcome you to add your preferred pronouns to your name here in Zoom. And we are going to share some community agreements with you in the chat. These are Commonfield's commitments to access and care throughout this year's 2021 Sustaining Futures Convening. And also, although it's really unlikely, if at any time during today's session you feel unsafe or you have something you need to check in with a staff member about, please feel free to reach out to me or anyone else with CF staff in their display name via direct message. Commonfield would like to begin our time together today by first acknowledging the land that we as individual staff members occupy as settlers. I'm calling in from the ancient and ancestral lands of the Keech people, and I would like to acknowledge them, the custodians of this land, now called Los Angeles, California, and pay my respects to them and honor their past, present, and presence here. We encourage everyone to consider where you are and with which Indigenous peoples you are currently in relationship. So we welcome you to please type into the chat your name, your pronouns, and which lands you are occupying and stewarding. If you're not aware, we have some resources that we're also going to share in the chat, including Native Land Digital Map, which you can use to learn more about your cited location. And without further ado, I would like to welcome today's session presenters, Megan Bent, Aurora Berger, and Jillian Crochet.
Hi, everyone. This is Aurora speaking. We're a group of artists who met through the 2021 Art Beyond Sight Art and Disability Residency. Unfortunately, Sarah, the fourth member of our team that came up with this session, was not able to join us today, but we are here. So we're going to just start off by introducing ourselves and giving quick visual descriptions of what we look like.
Hi, I'm Jillian Crochet. I use she, her pronouns. I'm currently occupying Ohlone land. I'm a white woman with dark curly hair and cat-eye glasses. I'm wearing a black shirt and there's a white wall behind me. I'm an interdisciplinary artist working in sculpture, performance, and video about disability and grief.
Hi, my name is Aurora Berger. My pronouns are she, her, and I live on Abenaki and Wabanaki land. I'm an artist, educator, and writer. I live in Vermont where I teach elementary and middle school art, and I'm theoretically writing a book on disability and contemporary art if I ever find the time to finish it. I am a white woman in my late 20s with longish blonde hair and navy blue rectangular glasses. I'm wearing a bright teal V-neck shirt and sitting in a black office chair in my classroom with a light green wall behind me.
Hi, my name is Megan Bent. I am a white woman with long brown hair. I'm sitting in my apartment, but behind me is one of my chlorophyll prints that has 2 calla lily leaves and a series of cascading shadows of me walking and printed into them. I am calling in and occupying Tungus land, and my pronouns are she, her. I am a chronically ill disabled artist, and I work with alternative process photography, video, and installation to interrogate how disability has been historically represented and to assert my authentic disability representation and experience.
Great. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, Aurora speaking again. Participation guide. Honor your body, move around, flap, spin, lay down, sit, stand, camera on or off. The first time that you speak, introduce yourself with a short visual description, and after that, when you speak, please say your name, speaking. Next to this text on this slide is an image with an image description that reads, a Black person lays out peacefully on a bed with pastel tie-dyed sheets. Soft speckled light shines down on her. Image credit, Black Power Naps, photographer Avi Avion, model Tourmaline. Next slide, please. This is a safe space for disabled people. Respect and value disabled lived experiences, even if they do not match your own. Next slide. Content warnings. There are little red triangles with Black exclamation points on either side of this statement. Throughout this session, themes of discrimination and harm to the disability community will come up. We will have specific content warnings before each presenter's section, letting you know exactly what to expect. Each section is 9 minutes, followed by a 7-minute activity. Please take care of yourselves and each other. And if you need to skip a section, please feel free to leave the session and enter back in later. Each session will last about 16 minutes total. Next slide. We recognize our privilege as white disabled women and that we do not represent the full breadth of intersectional identities in the disability community. We would like to make space and center BIPOC voices during our discussions. We welcome you to share your experience and/or comments. Next slide. So we want to clarify what ableism means to us. We are working from a shared understanding of this definition by Talila Lewis. This definition is written in white text on a purple background. Ableism, noun. A system that places value on people's bodies and minds based on societally constructed ideas of normality, intelligence, excellence, desirability, and productivity. These constructed ideas are deeply rooted in anti-Blackness, eugenics, misogyny, colonialism, imperialism, and capitalism. This form of systemic oppression leads to people and societies determining who is valuable and worthy based on a person's language, appearance, religion, and/or their ability to satisfactorily reproduce, excel, and behave. You do not have to be disabled to experience ableism. A working definition by Talila T.L. Lewis, updated January 2021, developed in community with disabled Black and other negatively racialized people, especially Dustin Gibson. Next slide, please. We recognize that there may be non-disabled people in our audience, and to contextualize our understanding of disability, we present the medical versus the social models of disability, two models that are often used to frame how disability is understood. The medical model is how society has conditioned us to see disability as the disabled person or body's fault and in need of fixing, whereas the social model states that societal structures and beliefs are what actually creates barriers to access for disabled people, such as our propensity for building stairs instead of ramps. And now I'm going to hand this over to Jillian.
Hi again, Jillian speaking. My practice has several different facets, all layered and circuitously intersecting and diverging. Today, I'll be sharing with you some of my institutional critique, aka built environment critique works. On this slide, 2 images. On the left, a light bluish accessible bathroom stall with a white toilet and 3 grab bars. The image on the right is a wall label between 2 metal grab bars that reads Jillian Crochet, accessible bathroom 2021. And materials listed are emotional labor, tears, and negotiation. My dreams include that I never have to have another meeting or write another email about bathrooms. These works make visible the labor that I and other disabled people have to contend with daily. Often behind the scenes, I'm endlessly advocating to get in bathrooms and doors, among many other access needs. This invisible labor takes up significant time, energy, and space in my practice as an artist. Because so much of my existence is about responding to and negotiating my surroundings in the built environment, the barriers, refusals, negotiating, frustration, and rage become my materials. In this slide is a close-up of 2 white doors with metal pulling handles, with the blue accessible wheelchair sticker in one window. My dream of equal access is still very far away. A lot of people believe, I even used to, that because the ADA happened and we see little blue wheelchair access stickers everywhere, our physical and built environment is accessible. Unfortunately, it's not. There are sadly many doors, floors, bathrooms, beaches, and woods that I cannot get to as the wheelchair user. Sometimes, well, a lot of the time, it's because of money and the ever-growing loopholes in the ADA.
Ceramic cart also has like shards, like there was maybe like some big plate that was then like broken off. So that is part of a description.
This is a video taken over my shoulder. My hands are visible holding a walkie-talkie. In the background are some stairs that lead to a gallery that I cannot get to. The audio is a cryptic description of the art upstairs. The description is by a gallery visitor that I asked to help me by describing the works. Note, this is not an acceptable, accessible alternative for physical access, although audio description should be included in all galleries for blind and low vision visitors. I want to go to all the galleries, the ones up the stairs. I want to go on a hike without encountering stairs built into trails or possibly steep inclines. And in order for this to happen, first, a change in perception, a change to our deeply ingrained ableist ideology and social structures is required.
Ceramic cart also.
Oops. Recognizing just how much of the world is not built physically and ideologically for certain kinds of bodies is crucial. And then we need to make those changes now, not in 5 years because of the budget. And of course, when I speak of certain kinds of bodies, my initial thought was the physically disabled wheelchair user, but our built structures and beliefs are made to exclude many bodies: blind, deaf, hard of hearing, queer, trans, BIPOC, not just mine. This is an image taken outside amidst trees and shrubs. On the left is a blue sign with white lettering that says, built and maintained for certain bodies. Affixed to a sign post next to the top of a wooden staircase. Everything we think of as natural, quote unquote, is actually built. The parks we think of as pure, idealistic, wild, where we go to be one with nature, are actually built and maintained for certain types of bodies. Trails have been carved, trees have been planted or moved or demolished, but only for athletic, fit bodies that can climb steep and treacherous terrain. The more difficult a trail, the better, as though the challenge is the ideal. But hiking up mountains are an access need. But hiking trails of mountains are an access need. You should read Eli Clare, who has written a lot about Crip and nature. His writing is influential in my work about the built environment. Someone, I can't remember who, pointed out stairs are an access need. And I just can't stop thinking about that. In this slide, a white wooden informational sign, like you might find on a park trail about some historical battle, sits next to a cement ramp. In the background is a large grassy expanse flanked by trees. My frustration with inaccessible park trails became acute during my fellowship at the Headland Center for the Arts and led to my research into Lori Gray versus the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. In this next slide is a PDF close-up of the info sign consisting of teal and yellow sticky notes layering over a green map and text. This landmark settlement document includes 54 required modifications and improvements. At first, I got really excited. There were mandated accessible trails. I couldn't believe it. But when I started researching it and reading more, I realized there are only 2 miles out of 154 miles of trails that were required to be modified to be physically accessible. That's 1.3%. I even tried some trails myself. The video of these tests and links pertaining to the case are linked in the PDF. You can click on some of the sticky notes and they'll take you to different links if you scan the QR code with your phone. I encourage you to check out wheelchairstraveling.com and accessnca.org. The links are here. This informational sign is a sort of Crip monument to show the labor and research required by disabled people just to plan a trip outdoors. And also to all the disabled elders and ancestors that worked on this lawsuit and the work that had to happen before it. I'm grateful for this labor. There's still so much to do, and it should not fall on disabled people. Our current system is broken. The ADA is full of loopholes. The burden of holding businesses and institutions accountable is on disabled people. To make change to inaccessible places, to be included, disabled individuals have to take legal action. And it is messy, demeaning, and hard labor. There's immense stigma. Society believes that disabled people are just trying to make a quick buck, when in fact, the system is flawed. Businesses don't have to change unless they're sued. It's individuals against giant institutions who do not want to change, do not want to set precedents of true care, and fight really hard not to. And now for a bit of audience engagement, please share in the chat or raise your hand to share on video your own experiences of inaccessibility in the arts and what would have made it ideal. Or if you're non-disabled, share in the chat what you have noticed or realized today at your own organization that you will advocate to change or make better. And then if we could, yeah. Yeah, Aurora says, can't count how many times I've sat on a gallery floor because there was nowhere else to sit. Maura says, hi, Maura here. Built environment is also the psychological ableist environment experience for me at many residencies. Shannon says, +1 to that, Aurora. Millie says, Aurora, I was about to ask that. I've been telling our gallery that we should have benches and seats in our gallery, but they never listen. Isn't that the truth? Megan says, right now it is hard to find opportunities to apply to because I am immunocompromised and meeting in person isn't safe yet. Gian says, I'm a chronic pain sufferer and I like visiting museums, but I noticed there aren't enough places to sit within exhibition spaces. Thanks for your presentation. I encourage you all to look up Shannon Finnegan's work about making benches and seating in galleries. Chris says, want to uplift the work of LA-based artist Jacqueline Roman, who has an #AskAccessDenied project documenting access issues in local art spaces. Someone anonymously says, pacing labor expectations and communication can be limiting for me in work with arts and cultural institutions. Jennifer says, we have so much to improve upon. I believe prioritizing accessibility improvements in our budget will be a good start. I agree with that, Jennifer. It's so true. There's so many times that I've been told and friends have been told, well, that's too expensive, or we don't have that in the budget, or it's in our future plans and it's like 4 years away, or even 4 years away seems really far to me.
Hey, Jillian.
Yeah.
This is Chris from Commonfield. I just want to give you a 1 minute.
Okay, cool. I'll finish reading the chat. Gian says, or there aren't enough wheelchairs because my disability may be considered to be invisible. Yeah, I think I want to uplift invisible disabilities as well. The struggle is really hard, no matter what your disability is. And my disability has become, my condition has progressed. And so I used to be more of an invisible disability and found different challenges with that. And now, as somebody who uses a wheelchair more, there are other things that I come up against. I don't know. Moira says, addition to built environments as embodied psychological environments, meaning that there is little knowledge or conversations or open safe spaces to hold such conversations and maintaining them. Alex says, I borrow a wheelchair when I visit large museums and they're almost always broken. Ah, dang. Okay, so I think that's good. Thank you all for sharing This is really great, and I'm going to pass it back to Aurora.
Thank you. I'm going to figure out how to share my screen correctly. Give me a sec. It's almost inevitably going to go wrong the first time. That's how my life works. All right, great. This is Aurora speaking. Content warnings for this session include ableism, classism, medicalization, depression, and workplace-related trauma. On this slide, there's a cyanotype of my hands against a white background. An image of small plants is overlaid across my fingers. Both hands have the fingers extended as if they are dancing. The edges of the cyanotype are ragged and misshapen. My art practice is about the things that are going on around me. These parameters are usually the genesis for creation when circumstances create the opportunities to make things, or sometimes a lack of creation, as has been the case for most of the past few years. Disability and art are so deeply intertwined for me that I can't separate them. Art history, cultural history, personal history, all twist together and bind into a single trajectory that leads through the shadows of disabled history to the artist that I have become. My work is about reckoning with the very real struggles that can come with being a disabled person. If this convening had been held a few weeks ago, I would have likely presented you with a very different session. I would have told you about the struggles that many disabled people face living in housing and food deserts without transportation or access to medical care. I would have emphasized the need for accessible and holistic healthcare systems and for universal health insurance. But this past 2 weeks have broken me. As an artist and an activist who tries to advocate for the equal rights of others, the past few weeks have found me in a situation that is both new and familiar, surprising and yet a dreaded expectation. On this slide, there's a black and white photograph of me naked, curled into the bottom corner of the frame. And surrounded by ferns and fallen trees, sunlight falls in patches across the picture. I won't go into the specifics because they don't really matter. This is a story that is echoed time and time again by other disabled people in different states, at different companies, people with different disabilities, but here's the short version. I work full-time at a public school in Vermont. I teach art and I work as a special ed paraprofessional. I've been at this school for 2 years, but this is my first year as a full-time employee. Ever since my contract was finalized, I've been trying to get my needs accommodated. Now, 2 months later, this request has become an emergency. I've been in meetings with administrators for the past few weeks, arguing for my right to be able to work my job. This job is both a necessary liberation and a confinement. I love the work that I'm doing. The district provides me with health insurance that I can actually afford. My parents live 10 minutes from the school and are able to drive me to and from work without much difficulty. I'm able to put much needed money into my healthcare. But I also live in an extremely rural place with limited access to healthcare and no public transportation. My town of 1,100 people has one street of houses that are walking distance to my work. For the past 3 years, there have been 0 vacancies. And even if there were, and I'd somehow managed to afford it, I would still be completely reliant on my parents for all non-work related transportation because I cannot drive. The past few weeks have been some of the most emotionally taxing of my life. I know the laws and what I'm due. I have supportive friends and colleagues. I have a member of a strong union, and yet this process has completely broken my will to fight. Being disabled in a capitalist society is exhausting, demoralizing, and dehumanizing. On this slide is a watercolor painting that vaguely depicts a green field and trees, purple shadows of buildings or rock formations in the distance, and an orange and magenta sunset. There are no details, only washes of color. Overlaid across the image and matching the dips and peaks of the color fields are the thin white lines of a single supraventricular ectopic heartbeat off of a Holter monitor. Equal rights for disabled people in the workplace are protected by two different laws, the Americans with Disabilities Act and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. These laws are constantly being undermined by companies trying to find ways to legally discriminate against people with disabilities. Last month, CVS filed a lawsuit arguing that people with disabilities only have a right to bring discrimination claims if the discrimination was intentional. Although it has since been dismissed, this case would have prevented disabled people from filing disparate impact cases in which the discrimination is in the form of benign neglect rather than intentional discrimination. Cases like CVS v. Doe are a terrifying threat to the support structures that disabled activists have been working for half a century to build. It could erode the few protections that are in place to help people like me work in a system that was not built for us. More than anything else, this experience has shown me just how small the system believes I am, that they see me as a pawn who can be placed as they choose. But let me just say, they chose the wrong pawn. I may not be physically able to do certain things, but I am capable of so much more than they believe. Crip time and capitalist time are not compatible, and as disabled people, we bear the burden of this disparity. How can we function as disabled artists when Crip time and capitalist time run on different clocks? I wake up and leave for work from 7:30 to 3:30, go to a meeting or a doctor's appointment, and then go home and collapse. When is the time for creation? At the beginning of this talk, I said that the parameters of my life are the genesis for a lack of creation. This is what I meant. Crip exhaustion is not the same as being tired. It is a fatigue that draws you in so completely that you cannot move or think. On this slide is a photograph of a small wood house nestled into a copse of tall, thin trees. Part of the house, ancient and caving in, is shingled with a roof that is on the verge of collapse. The rest is rough wood with a rusted metal roof and a cinder block chimney. Many of the windows and doors are broken or missing. Extra windows lean against the front of the house. Fallen trees in the foreground frame the structure. I spend most of my time in an anxiety spiral, jumping between my job and my health, my living arrangements, anxiety over my own anxiety. As Jillian said, built spaces are constructed for specific bodies. I can walk upstairs, but I cannot drive. And in rural Vermont, not driving can be massively disabling. I need someone to drive me everywhere. Work, doctor's appointments, groceries, laundry. The public transportation in my area and in most of the rural United States is abysmal. The image on the screen right now is a photograph of the house that I was born in. It has not been lived in since my family was forced to leave 24 years ago. I returned to photograph it a few years ago when I found myself living once again with my parents, a return to the childhood dependence that I thought I had finally escaped. I dream of a future where I once again have independence. There's a running joke in the disabled community. Have you tried yoga? My personal version of this is, can't you just get disability? There's a conception that as a disabled person, the world opens up, that we can somehow sign a form and magically receive money. Federal disability is so difficult to qualify for that it can often take 2 or 3 appeals to get it, if you even do. When you cannot qualify because the court says that you're able to work based on the fact that you have been working, not because you can, but because you can't not. Especially when federal disability is a form of forced poverty that many cannot survive in. I dream of a day when income and disability are not tied to each other, when every person, regardless of work eligibility or familial wealth, can have equitable access to health care, when dental coverage is not a luxury, when people who do not need to choose between their health and their rent. I dream of all of us, this for all of us, not just those of us who are disabled, having access to healthcare, access to employment, access to independence. I dream of a future where the idea of uninsured and underinsured people seems like a fever dream. I dream of a future where going to the doctor does not feel like a minefield of hidden expenses. I dream of a future where disabled bodies are seen as people, not as computerized file of numbers. I dream that one day a doctor will look at my file and see the person sitting before them is more than a sum of these numbers. I don't know how to bring about the systemic changes that we so desperately need, but sometimes these days it truly feels like I am drowning, and I can only keep struggling to keep my own head above the water in hopes that this future holds easier times ahead. These challenges are massive, and it will take collective movement to make the changes that we need. In that spirit, I'm going to take a few minutes to ask everyone to join me in imagining what this future could look like. I have 2 questions for us to think about, and I'm going to ask that we take a minute to think about them, and then people can choose to type responses into the chat, and I'll do my best to read responses out loud, or if you prefer, raise your hand and unmute and respond that way. So my 2 questions are, what would equitable healthcare look like to you? And Crip time, capitalist time, and art time, what do these ideas evoke for you? I will stop sharing my screen so people can answer. So Jennifer says, equitable healthcare would be universal healthcare. Everyone has the same access. I agree. Nick says M for A. Hard agree. Ooh, Chris says, Medicare for all with open and equitable access to doctors, short or no waiting times to make appointments, robust list of providers who work with different communities and have specialized knowledge of a patient's needs. Absolutely. And I would even add having that everywhere, because right now we only have access to things like that sometimes in cities. And that's really difficult in rural America. A says, equitable healthcare would train doctors to trust patients as experts and co-creators of their own health and wellness regimens. Equitable healthcare would not have a profit motive, which discourages holistic and preventative care. Yes. Get rid of the profit margins, get rid of the pharmaceutical companies. And then, but have you tried yoga? I have tried yoga. Jillian says, I've often tried to get a new patient appointment for 6+ months. Me too. Shannon says, I'm stuck on Crip exhaustion as a form of Crip time. I had the definition, but not the term. I love this. I'm glad. Jihan says, healthcare that has actionable measures that combat medical racism within practice and medical education. I think medical education has a lot of work to do to improve this field. And I think that we need to put a lot more stress on medical education programs to do that. Josephine says, healers outside Western medicine are supported and able to offer services to all who need them. If health insurance companies would cover Eastern medicine, we'd all be in a different situation right now. Jillian says no insurance companies. I agree. Burn the insurance companies to the ground.
Hey, Aurora, this is Chris. This is just your 1 minute notice.
Moira says, care for caregivers and all Indigenous health knowledges. Yes. Alex says, I like the phrase art time. I think my art time goes hand in hand with fluctuating capacity as something that should sustain me and bring joy, not revolving around deadlines and such. I completely agree, Alex. And I think that's why I've barely made art in a long time, because I am depressed. So, perfect. Jillian says, decent wages for caregivers by the government. Yes. Oh my God, yes. Also subsidized care, subsidized wages for caregivers for people who aren't on medical disability. I think I will leave it there. If you have more thoughts, please put them in the chat. I still want to hear them, even if I'm not speaking anymore. And I'm going to hand this over to Megan.
Hi, this is Megan speaking. I am going to go ahead and share my screen. Hi, this is Megan talking. In my session, I will be mentioning and sharing imagery of harmful stereotypical representations of disability in the media. I'll also be talking about the pandemic and ableism during the pandemic. If for your own self-care you would like to leave, please take a break and return to the session in 16 minutes when I'm done presenting. The image on the screen is quarantine day 280. A green oval shaped hosta leaf on a black background. Printed in the chlorophyll is a self-portrait where my eyes and face mask are visible. The rest of my face and hair gradually disappear into the leaf. This image is from my most current project, I Don't Want to Paint a Silver Lining Around It, which is my personal reflection of being high risk in the pandemic. And it's also my response to the outside world's demand that disabled people be acceptable losses for personal convenience or corporate profit. This image is created through an alternative photographic process of chlorophyll printing, which uses UV light to print images directly into the chlorophyll of organic material. New image on the screen. I live in Crip time. A vertical hosta leaf on a black background. Printed in the chlorophyll is a hand holding a necklace with a spoon pendant up to the sun. In the middle is a black text box with white text in Crip time. In chlorophyll printing, one print or exposure can take from up to 8 to 72 hours, sometimes more. The process only works when there's bright and visible UV light. Making the work requires flexibility and interdependence with nature. It values slowness and vulnerability. My Crip future dreams live in this process. It echoes my experience of chronic illness in Crip time. As Alison Kafer put it, rather than bend disabled bodies and minds to meet the clock, Crip time bends the clock to meet disabled bodies and minds. With a progressive chronic illness, I never know how I will feel from one day to the next or what my capacity will be. So it's imperative that I have flexibility in time. For me, restructuring or cripping time is a radical act of disability, joy, wisdom, and creativity. In chlorophyll printing, you never know exactly what the day's weather is going to bring and if you're going to be able to successfully make a print or not. For half a year where I live, there's not even enough UV light to make prints. So this process also crips time. Embracing and valuing slowness, flexibility, interdependence subverts capitalist ideals of speed, production, perfection, replication, systems and ideas that cause harm to disabled people. So my process is grounded in the care and wisdom of disability, and the imagery in the work is an assertion of my disabled experience and a calling out of the ableism that permeates society. Text on the screen. Disability happens around us more than we generally recognize or care to notice. And we harbor unspoken anxieties about the possibility of disablement to us or someone close to us. What we fear, we often stigmatize and shun, and sometimes seek to destroy. Popular entertainments depicting disabled characters allude to these fears and prejudices, or address them obliquely and fragmentarily, seeking to reassure us about ourselves. Paul K. Longmore, Screening Stereotypes, Images of Disabled People in Television and Motion Pictures. Reading and research influence many of the decisions that I make as an artist. I'm particularly interested in the history of disability representation within photography and media, and how this representation perpetuates ableism in overt and covert ways. Since there's just a little bit of time to share today, I'm going to focus on the three main stereotypes in mainstream media that Paul K. Longmore identifies in Screening Stereotypes. I also want to mention that this essay was written in 1985. That's almost 40 years ago, but the problems that he identifies are still prevalent today. New image on the screen, film still from The Witches 2020. A white woman leaning on a podium. She is portrayed with limb difference and scarring on the top of her head. She has an angry look on her face. The first stereotype is the villain. Longmore writes, among the most persistent is the association of disability with malevolence. Deformity of the body symbolizes deformity of the soul. This stereotypical representation is still a major issue today. This movie, The Witches, was made in 2020, and decisions were made to portray the villain with limb difference and scarring. Anne Hathaway and the film's production have apologized for this portrayal and the harm that it caused. But one thing I think about is how many iterations of scripting, storyboarding, costume design, and filming happened with no one raising this issue until the disability community did. It shows that disabled people were not a part of these conversations. Two images on the screen. Left is a film still from The Elephant Man. A silhouetted figure is behind a curtain. Right is a film still from Frankenstein. Frankenstein is walking with a dramatic shadow of his body projected on the wall. The second stereotype is the monster. The monster lives in isolation, is feared by mainstream public, and is stared at by society. Longmore notes that this stereotype reflects the fundamental nature of stigma. The stigmatized person is regarded as somehow less than human. It also exemplifies the spread effect of prejudice, where the stigmatized trait assumedly spreads to every aspect of the person, pervasively spoiling their social identity. The monster stereotype is also portrayed as deviant, is portrayed as a danger to society, is removed and isolated from society. New image on the screen. Quarantine Day Zero. A golden and pink coleus leaf on a black background. Printed in the chlorophyll is my shadow while walking. On the bottom left-hand side of the frame, my hand is holding a cane. To crib something is to resist, disrupt normative constructs, and to assert disability pride. I'm intentionally printing on organic material to reframe disability as a natural part of human diversity. And reclaiming the shadow is something new that I'm thinking about in my work. How can the shadow, rather than signifying something fearful approaching non-disabled people, like seen in the monster stereotype, I'm using the shadow to assert my presence in the world and to create another visual layer of my body and chronically ill experience as interdependent, not separate from other people or the land. The title Quarantine Day Zero is a reference that this pandemic experience of remote connection and being isolated is not new for many chronically ill and disabled people. New image on the screen. Film still from Forrest Gump. A pair of legs running. Mid-stride, braces on the runner's legs break apart. The third stereotype is the inspiration. Longmore states, these stories of striving and courage seem to be the antithesis of the bitter and self-pitying, quote unquote, cripples in dramas of adjustment. But both stem from the same perception of the nature of disability. Disability is primarily a problem of emotional coping. of personal acceptance, not that it's a problem of social stigma and discrimination. The inspiration also serves to make non-disabled people feel good about their position, or the inspiration is a one-dimensional character that teaches a non-disabled character a lesson about being a good person. Disabled people are cheered and called inspirational for doing everyday things. And this stereotype sets up restrictive boundaries of how to be disabled or how to talk about disability. A lot of times I find that it's in reassuring non-disabled people, making them more comfortable and making ourselves and our experiences smaller. New image on the screen, low energy, not lazy. A yellow hibiscus leaf on a black background. Printed in the chlorophyll is a self-portrait of me in bed resting and being uninspiring. With representations of disability, I think things are slowly improving, but there's still a long way to go. Disabled people, we need to have space to tell our own stories, and not only have the space to tell them, but have the platforms for them to be valued and received widely. We need to play disabled characters in films and television, and we need those characters written by disabled people. Like Longmore mentioned, what we fear, we often stigmatize and shun and sometimes seek to destroy. When we are not represented or are represented through harmful stereotypes, it's one step in the cycle of ableism. We are portrayed as evil, fearful, inspirational, and these representations create stigma and prejudice. That stigma and prejudice leads to barriers and exclusion for disabled people. And like Jillian mentioned earlier about inaccessible environments and the ceaseless labor of advocacy, and like Aurora mentioned, and the barriers to creativity due to capitalist time. And in the pandemic, the disability community has endured so much trauma from ableism, including but not limited to being treated as expendable, having the accessibility accommodations that we have been asking for and denied for years, all of a sudden become doable since it was affecting the non-disabled community. Now having all those accommodations go away as people become eager to go back to normal, which I have a lot of thoughts about that and that word, but that's for another time. And we have experienced an even greater lack of access to medical care and treatment. Text on the slide. Oftentimes, disabled people have the solutions that society needs. We call it CRIP or crippled wisdom. Stacy Milburn, Disability Justice Culture Club. Disabled people know what it means to be vulnerable and interdependent. We are modern day oracles. It's time people listen to us. Alice Wong, Disabled Oracles and the Coronavirus, from Disability Visibility. There are so many other ways that ableism is occurring right now. And at the same time that our community has been enduring this trauma, we have been leaders with and for each other through remote access, mutual aid, and care networks. As Stacy Milburn and Alice Wong stated, we have the wisdom and we are today's oracles. So my dream is not just to have more representation, space, and acceptance, but to move into a space where we're valued as the creative, fierce, powerful leaders that we already know we are, and society to finally recognize that. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay. And for my audience engagement, we are going to have some polling questions about representation and some time to expand our thoughts on those polling questions. Question 1. Were the 3 main stereotypes of disability in media identified by Longmore a new concept for you? So I will just give everybody a little bit of time to answer. Okay. And I will end the poll. I think everyone has answered. Okay. So here are our results. It's about 60-40. And I wanted to ask if anybody wanted to share, expand on their answer. If this was not new to you, did it bring up anything new? If this was new to you, kind of what are your thoughts and feelings about what was shared in this presentation? Millie says 2 of them weren't in the inspiration and the villain, not new, but not something I've ever heard talked about often. Yeah. Okay. Ever. 2 of them were the villain, not new, but not something I ever heard talked about. Okay. Thank you, Millie. Yeah, I felt like for me, when I first learned about these stereotypes, it was when I was first coming into my disabled identity, and it really solidified how prevalent these stereotypes are, and the fact that I had started consuming them from a very young age as well. Okay, can we run the second polling question?
Megan, this is Chris from Commonfield. I just want to give you like a 1 minute or so notice.
Okay, great. So question 2, do you feel that in 2021 there is authentic disability representation in the mainstream media? Yes, no, not sure. Okay. So I'll share the results. So only, yeah, 1% said yes, 67% said no, and 28% said not sure. And I'll go ahead and Chris or Kevin, if you could share the last question. Question 3, if you identify as disabled, have you ever had your specific disability or experience of disability represented in mainstream media? Okay, and we can share the poll. So 25% of people in the audience who identify as disabled said yes, they had experienced an accurate representation in mainstream media, and 75% said no. Okay. Thanks everyone for taking the time to engage with that. And I wish there was a little bit more time to discuss, but I will have us keep moving through our session. And that will also be me sharing my screen again, hopefully successfully. Let's see. Okay. Great. Okay. So for our session, we created a zine. And if someone from Commonfield can drop a link in the chat to that zine, It was also up in the Oxford abstracts for our session as well. So maybe some people in attendance have already gotten to take a look at it. But within this zine, we wanted to not just share our own work during this session, but we wanted to amplify a lot of the work that was happening within the disability community. So there's sections about each of us, but then we've created a reading list. So on the screen right now is a reading list with links to different books and articles and blogs made from people within the disability community. We created a film list. On the screen right now is a film list with hyperlinks to different films about disability created by people within the disability community. We created a section called Crip Your Feed, where we have hyperlinks to different organizations and disabled artists that you can follow on social media. And we created action items for your community. So together we just dreamed about what are some of the things that we could do individually. And I'll just read a few of the items that we have here. So we have read about disability justice, lead an educational effort to dismantle ableism through trainings, workshops about disability, history, and rights centered in disability justice, including annual trainings for admin, staff, and faculty, and to ensure that these trainings are conducted by disabled people and that they should be paid for their labor. And then if we go down more, we also connected some resources that can help people enact these action items. Some of them include Access Guide on Instagram or WebAIM that can help you learn more about web accessibility, Alt Text is Poetry by Bojana Koklia and Shannon Finnegan about writing alt text. And I'm going to stop sharing. And for our group activity, we're going to work on a Jamboard and share and dream together more about our Crip futures. Yes, and
so the link for the Jamboard is in your chat, and if Commonfield could screen share that, yeah, thank you.
Great. And now I'm going to hand it.
This is Chris from Commonfield, just giving a 20-minute warning. Not warning, notice.
Okay. So I'm going to hand it over to Jillian, and she will introduce working on the Jamboard. Thank you.
Hey, again, this is Jillian. And so if you click on the Jamboard link, it'll take you to the Jamboard, and on the left in the toolbar, you'll see what looks like a little square with 2 lines in it. It's, if you hover over it, it's a sticky note, and you just click on a sticky note, and then you can select your color at the top. Any color is fine, and you can write in something that you would like to see. We'll say access audits. You hit save, and it'll send it to the Jamboard, and then just click outside of this sticky note screen onto the Jamboard screen, and it'll take you there, and you just move your sticky note wherever you want. So yeah, what are your dreams for an accessible future, and what are some things that you could commit to in your organization? What are some things that you have already done to build true inclusivity in your community? And do you have any ideas that we have not listed or talked about? Or do you have any suggestions for readings or films or social media accounts Self-promotion is not a bad thing in this situation. I know Moira has been developing access doulas that help during during anything on Zoom, and they help create more accessible environment for people. So I'm just going to read some of them, and if you'd like to chime in and explain more, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So one we have is continue to wear your mask. Events that require vaccination, masks, and social distancing. Totally, like we want to make the environment accessible for people who are immunocompromised, and we want to make safe environments, and we don't want them to be stuck at home isolating forever. Somebody put an elevator at my subway stop. Somebody else put, I love an elevator in our historic building so that I could have meetings with anyone in my office, not just those that can climb the stairs. Thank you. Access lines in every organizational budget. Heck yeah. One, build hybrid access for all cultural gatherings with paid access doulas. Yeah, pay us. One says, continuing to fight for equal rights for myself and others in my position to not lose our jobs. Yeah, it's really hard to advocate for yourself and others, and a lot of organizations aren't really ready to hear it or willing to make changes. Accessible public restrooms, yes. Oh, there's so many good ones. Would anybody like to chime in and like read one that they put that I was unable to mention and build on that? We've got one that says more safe spaces and conversations about disability and access needs. We don't all understand our access needs or even have the words. True. Yeah. It's all about, doing research and trying to find people to connect with. And it takes a lot of work. Abundant chairs, benches, and working wheelchairs at museums and galleries. Yes. Not needing to fight for accommodations. Travel without fear of my wheelchair being broken by an airline. Totally. It's so scary. I recently traveled and I was terrified. More specified funding for opportunities for disabled artists. Definitely. Chronic pain accommodations, language access, seats, elevators, and ramps everywhere. Did anybody want to chime in?
Hey, Jillian, it's Moira here.
Sure.
Thanks for mentioning the Access Doula. Hi, everybody. I'm really in love with the cross disability one that I have to go back to the jam board first. Accessibility, solidarity, breaking accessibility silos, e.g., I think that means example, shared spaces of solidarity between people with physical disabilities, mental illnesses, and chronic illnesses don't rely on medical definitions.
Yes.
And also, I'm kind of burnt out from typing, but I'd like to add too, like more spaces for cross disability solidarity with BIPOC folks too.
Totally.
Hey, Jillian, this is Chris from Commonfield, just with a 10-minute note.
Perfect. Yeah. So we're gonna move on to our question answer section. Set words. I've lost my ability to use words, but maybe I'm gonna hand it back to Megan.
Hi, this is Megan speaking again. Yeah, we are just going to wrap out with a very quick Q&A. If you want to type questions in the chat, Commonfield is going to help facilitate sharing those questions with us, and we will do our best to answer them in the last 10 minutes. While you are thinking of questions or getting ready to share them, we also just want to say in closing out, thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate being able to share our practices and Crip Future Dreams with you. And we really hope that the zine is a helpful resource for everyone in the audience moving forward. And just if you haven't gotten the time yet to spend some time with it, reading links to the artists and the tools we've provided for creating accessibility and inclusion.
And please feel free to share it with others who weren't here today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Aurora. Yes.
And we also want to thank all the Commonfield staff for all your help and flexibility, and we just love you all, and our ASL interpreters and CART. Thank you so much.
If any session attendees have any questions they would like to drop in the chat, please feel free to do so. If you would prefer to share your question verbally, we also welcome that, and I can transcribe the question and put it in the chat so it will be also visible in that way.
Moira said, Commonfield people are amazing. It's true. So yeah, any questions you might have for us, or questions you wanted to pose to the group, or anything you wanted to share that came up for you today, yeah, general comment.
This is Chris from Commonfield. I have a question around digital accessibility. I'm just curious what kinds of technologies or features y'all find most useful in terms of making websites and social media platforms more accessible for users of different abilities.
This is Megan speaking. I can speak to social media in my own personal experience and in some professional experience. I found it really helpful. And it's in the zine. There is, I have to look at it. There is one Instagram account, I think it's called Web Accessibility, that we listed, and they just have such great posts about contrast, fonts to make things accessible. We listed alt text as poetry. That's another great resource for learning about adding alt text to your social media and to your websites to make your content online accessible. And I will also mute myself and open it up if anyone else wants to share about that.
I don't want to like put you on the spot, but Michelle, would you be willing to maybe drop some things in the chat or share with us? I know Michelle did a session with us in Art and Disability Residency. Was wonderful.
Yeah, Michelle, stop doing your tech job while you listen to us and give us information in the chat.
This is Megan speaking. That is a great Jillian.
She might be busy.
She might be ignoring us. Okay, Michelle says I'll send over some links. Yes, thank you, Kevin. It's a great Instagram account. I would also say, from my experience working with programs like Squarespace, we actually figured out that there's some, like the older version of Squarespace doesn't actually have built-in, I don't remember what any of the terms are because I'm not a tech person, but it doesn't have some of the built-in software for identifying like keystrokes and being able to navigate with keystrokes. And that the newer software apparently does, but it requires transitioning your entire website over, which is a huge bummer. So that's something that I need to work on, but also just remembering to integrate image descriptions. Something that happened a couple of years ago when Instagram started putting alt text options with people stopped putting image descriptions, and that's not really useful unless you're using an actual screen reader. And so keeping the alt text as well as having image descriptions and remembering to do things like that is a huge help.
A good example, I don't know if we mentioned it, but the alt text website is a really great example of an accessible website, and they really put a lot of thought and energy into how to make it accessible, down to like the little graphics and picking out the graphics. And I think it's shared maybe on their website, but they did a Zoom, and like the people who made the website discussed about the making of the website, and that was really interesting too. Yes, the alt text as poetry website.
Cool. Michelle has dropped her link of resources on digital accessibility. Thank you, Michelle, for saving us every time someone asks us a question about technology. Oh, and Moira says, I love Christopher Nunez's DIY website. That is another great resource.
It looks like we are at time. If anyone has any final questions or comments they'd like to share, please do so in the chat or verbally. Otherwise, Megan, Jillian, Aurora, I'll just hand it back to you for any closing remarks.
This is Megan. Yeah, we just want to say again, thank you so much to everyone for being here, for listening to us, for sharing with us as well, helping create this safe container. And thank you again so much to Commonfield. You helped us a lot and we're just wonderful to work with. And yes, thank you to our ASL interpreters and our captioners, and just for everyone who helped create this space today. And Jillian, Aurora, if you have anything else you'd like to share.
I think you said it all.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Megan, Aurora, and Jillian. Thank you to our ASL interpreters, Lisa and Candice. Thank you to Amanda, our CART captioner, and Emily, our Zoom pilot. And finally, I just want to say thank you to Kevin, our convening technology producer, who's done a lot of the back-end work, scheduling many, many different people to make sure that all of these sessions have ASL interpretation and CART captioning and any other accessibility requests that come in. So thank you to everybody today. We've got one more session this afternoon, and hopefully we'll see you there. And if not, we'll definitely see you tomorrow for our closing. All right, take care.